before we jump into the conversation about voting, we have pulled together a video. We reached out to Reverend Jackson and his team, the Black Church PAC and our Action Fund and some of our organizing folks back in the early part of this year. Dr. Ron Daniels, you remember that name, Reverend Jackson?
I do.
And so he was telling us about this speech you gave called David and Goliath. And we said, you know what? We're going to make that a key part of how we encourage people to vote this year. And so take a look at this video, Reverend Jackson, and we love to hear some of your take on just this video, that speech, and the important thing about voting. So let's take a quick look.
The state of our union is stronger than ever before.
You will not replace us.
We are building the world's most prosperous and inclusive society.
Tell people not to come to our country illegally.
We passed the 2 articles of impeachment. The president is impeached.
You know, the virus, it's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
If a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them.
He won by the margin of despair. He won by the margin, the fracture of our coalition. He won by the margin of racial division. He won by default, not by genius. He won when we were asleep. We got more and more folk and fewer services. We cannot stop. We got to rise on higher. It's time for a new course, a new coalition, a new leadership. Somebody got to rise above race, rise above sex, a new leadership, a choice, a chance. There's a little shepherd boy named David. Everybody in town was scared of Goliath. Little David took off his unnecessary garments. Little David didn't want to get weighted down with a lot of foolishness. Little David took what God gave him, a slingshot and a God biscuit, a rock. Our problem today is really organized, non-registered blacks, Hispanics, rocks, just laying around. Students unregistered, 11 million college students who could have chosen jobs over jails, peace over walls, that didn't vote. Now they're crying. Rocks, just laying around. We're gonna stop the rocks that's been laying around and pick them up. Rocks, just laying around. Don't cry about what you don't have. Use what you got. You want somebody who marched for you to get the right to vote. You got a choice. You want somebody who challenged corporate America to hire and give you contracts. You got a choice. Rocks, just laying around. Your time has come. Pick up your slingshot. Pick up your rock. Declare our time has come. A new day has begun. Red, yellow, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. Our time has come. It's choice time.
That guy was something, wasn't he? You know, the point is that we lost by the margin of unused votes. You never lose a big championship by not making free throws. It's one thing to run in and get a shot blocked and miss a three, but to lose a game where you miss 15 free throws is a damn shame. And all we're saying is that we're losing big race by the margin of people who did not vote and then use their franchise. Dr. King would often say that he wanted to vote because in the case of Emmett Till, when Emmett Till was lynched, the jury convened. They knew who killed him. They knew who killed him. The guy was almost bragging about it, killed him. And the jury was out 30 minutes. They came in and said, no indictment. And they asked, one writer asked, why did the jury so? He said, well, it was quick because we could have been quicker. He said, we cannot imagine a white man going to jail for killing a nigger. Doc, he said, one juror could have hung the whole process. It's one juror. And so, in some sense, those who want criminal justice have to vote to serve on juries. The thing I like about democracy, Steve, is that you can vote your adversary out of power without destroying the person. You put yourself in power without destroying anybody. I remember walking down the streets of Oakland at the Evergreen Baptist Church when Congressman Dillon was running so many years ago. We used the vote. Today, Mac, Montgomery, Alabama, the black mayor, Selma, Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, Richmond, Virginia, Atlanta, Georgia, Savannah, Georgia. Use the political process. The political process is redemptive. You can change power without having to destroy somebody. That's what I like about the bar. You can change power, become powerful without having to destroy anybody.
It's fascinating to me that you gave that speech, I believe, in '84, and man, that was almost 25. No, that had to be. Is my math right? 16, 20. That was 35 some years ago. And it's still true today. One of the great things that we've been doing with this partnership with Steve and the NBA is making sure that many people have the opportunity to vote, and we're using our platforms to spread that message. Steve, you want to just talk a little bit about that and maybe ask Rev some of his thoughts about it?
Yeah, we're just trying really hard in the NBA to make sure that people in all 30 NBA cities have every opportunity to vote. So, for example, today in Georgia, Lloyd Pierce, the head coach of the Hawks, was manning one of the stations at the Hawks arena, and the entire arena was opened up as a polling center. And Lloyd said that people were in and out of there in 20 minutes.
Wow.
And compare that to across the state in many polling stations in Georgia, it was taking people 5-6 hours. So we're trying all over the country through the NBA Coaches Association and Players Association and League Office to try to open up the vote, to try to make things as easy as possible, because we know of the history in this country. We know of the history of voter suppression. It's gotten much more sophisticated now than it was a couple hundred years ago, but it still exists. We see it in so many states. So what we're doing with the Warriors is we're opening up the Chase Center as a ballot drop-off place, and we have a lot of things going on our social media platforms, trying to appeal to people to register to vote and make it as easy as possible. And I'm very, very proud of the work the Warriors are doing in that regard.
What I like, and athletes move the whole world. But David and Goliath, Samson, the Philistines, athletes move. I mean, back in when blacks were untouchables, when Jack Johnson beat Tom Jeffries, an athlete defied the science of racism. Jack Robinson breaking into baseball. Joe Louis beat Max Mellon. Thomas Smith and Carlos in the Olympics. Athletes have awesome power. And this time around, really under the inspiration of LeBron James, we see a different kind of athlete supported by the infrastructure. Right? You can be an athlete and be relevant and don't have to be defined your organization. The NBA itself supports voter registration. And see, that's new. That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Pastor Joe, you've been helping to lead the effort, particularly around the Rainbow Push Check efforts, closing the digital divide. But you also have a whole lot of relationships with athletes and influencers. Just talk a little bit about how your leadership along with Reverend Jackson and Rainbow Push is really helping to continue to keep the kind of advocacy of these issues at the forefront of our minds.
Reverend Jackson, he knows no bounds when it comes to reaching people and giving them the right message at the right time. And so in as much as he's had a voice in helping to advocate for African Americans being empowered in sports, he worked with the Rooney family to shape what became known as the Rooney Rule. He helped Joe Dumars when he was applying for a general manager job, and he helped Bob Johnson when he wanted to become an owner of the basketball team. He helped Magic go into, decision-making processes, and he wanted to make sure that the athlete was more than an athlete. And so that's a part of his legacy. He was so close to the Jackie Robinson family that he eulogized Jackie, and he's been a part of this pattern for years. And so today, as Steve mentioned, Reverend can show up at a game. We go to all-star games and championships, but really he is pulling aside the African-American athlete and reminding them you're more than that. And so he'll talk to these young men during warm-ups and shoot around and just remind them, use your platform for the greater good. Speak to the things that matter to you. Go back to your community and help people to understand the value of these kind of things, to the extent that even right here in Oakland, we were able to work with now a assistant coach champion who's a part of our Oakland community, Jason Kidd. He came back to Oakland last summer, and not only did he renovate the gym where he worked out in as a kid, we were able to put a tech program there. And so Reverend Jackson led us to engage Silicon Valley and bring pipelines to power to say, we want to make sure that our African-American brothers and sisters, people of color, those that have been underserved are being blessed and benefited, not just having a cell phone and being able to text and have apps on their phone, but learn how to do coding and app development. And so along with a lot of basketball players last summer, Steve, we were just so grateful to engage athletes right there in Oakland who wanted to just come and tell kids, stay in school, listen to your parents, stay out of trouble. Shoot the J if you can, but learn tech, because that'll take you even farther. And so that's a part of Reverend's legacy, that we just continuously have a message that goes beyond the obvious. And he's done that with athletes. He's done that in the tech segment. And now we're doing it across the nation by pushing the voter registration, pushing the need for people to be aware and intelligent about the decisions, and making sure they know that their voice and their vote really matters.
My friends, use your platform, and don't let anything break your spirit. And I said many times ago, Mac, keep hope alive. Let nothing break your, keep hope alive. Don't surrender. Keep hope alive. Fight back. When you fight back, you win. And that's strength in numbers.
The great Reverend Jesse Jackson, everyone.